Hello and welcome. I am Dele Farotimi. This is the news. The top stories of this hour. Human rights activist Dele Farotimi arraigned over alleged defamation. The Senate pauses tax bill plans meeting to address disputes. U.S. President Joe Biden in Angola tours Lobito port terminal. Details shortly. News Central now at this hour begins at the courts as human rights lawyer and activist Dele Farotimi has been arraigned before an Ekiti State Magistrate Court. Farotimi, who was arrested in Lagos on Tuesday by operatives of the Ekiti State Police Command, was brought to the court at about 10:25 a.m. Wednesday. The activist lawyer is being prosecuted on a 16-court charge of defamation of character against illegal luminary, and that's Afe Babalola. He was accused of having maligned and defamed the character of Afe Babalola in his recently published book titled Nigeria and Its Criminal Justice System. Farotimi's lawyer has confirmed that he was not granted bail. The Ekiti State Police Command has also confirmed Farotimi's arrest, stating that he was apprehended after failing to honor previous requests for questioning. The court has adjourned the case until December 10th. Meanwhile, the former Vice President of Nigeria and the 2023 presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and that is Atiku Abubakar, has strongly condemned the arrest and detention of lawyer and human rights advocate, and that's Dele Farotimi. Now, Atiku described the incident as a disturbing reminder of Nigeria's oppressive military dictatorship era, criticizing the use of state forces to suppress dissent and limit free expression. In a statement issued on Wednesday, Atiku expressed outrage over the accusations of defamation against Farotimi, arguing that such matters should not involve law enforcement. He further condemned the growing trend of targeting individuals who oppose the administration or exercise their rights to free speech, warning that this poses a serious threat to Nigeria's democratic values. And now to the Parliament, as the Senate's leadership has directed its Committee on Finance to suspend further action on the proposed tax bill pending the outcome of a high-level meeting with the Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, the Deputy Senate President, and that is Bure Jibril, who made the announcement during the plenary, disclosed that a special committee has been constituted to address contentious issues in the bill, with the meeting scheduled for Thursday. Now, the decision follows a series of deliberations by lawmakers and aimed at resolving disagreements over key provisions in the proposed legislation. Now, the contentious areas have sparked debates among stakeholders in the last couple of days. In addition to this, the Senate leadership announced plans to convene a special meeting to be held at the National Assembly and chaired by the minority leader to address all areas of this agreement. Now, still on tax reform bill tussle, staying with the Parliament this time, a tense session unfolded in the House of Representatives on Tuesday as Ekiti Rotimi, the Chamber's spokesman, declared support for President Tinubu's tax reform bills. Now, representing Ekiti State, Rotimi stated his caucus unanimously endorsed the controversial bills, sparking loud protests from lawmakers. Now, repeated attempts by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas to restore order failed, forcing Rotimi to withdraw his remarks. Abbas clarified that Rotimi was expressing a personal opinion and urged lawmakers to focus on substantive matter. Separately, Kano lawmaker Tijani Gali accused Deputy Spokesman Philip Agbache of misrepresenting opposition to the bills and called for his resignation. Now, the matter was referred to the Ethics and Privileges Committee for investigation.
Just order, please. He was just taken on a light note. Please, let us not take it serious. Colleagues are back. Please, I beg you.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of Honorable Boma Goodhead. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of Honorable Boma Goodhead. Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. Order.
Protected, Mr. Speaker.
He's expressing his personal opinion. Please go ahead, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Order,
Mr.
order,
Speaker,
please.
I am protected. Honorable colleagues, I am protected. Honorable colleagues, I am protected, please.
Away from the tax reform bills, but staying with the Parliament, the Nigerian Senate has approved the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework with a total spending of 47.9 trillion naira and a new borrowing plan of 9.22 trillion naira, which includes both domestic and foreign borrowings. Now, this followed the presentation of a joint report by the chairman of the Joint Committees on Finance and National Planning and Economic Affairs, presented by Senator Musa Sani. The highlights of the approved recommendations of 2025 to 2027 NTEF FSP include approval of a projected framework with an exchange rate of 1,400 naira to a dollar and the oil prices of $75, $76.2 and $75.3 per barrel for 2025, 2026 and 2027 respectively. Now, during the debate, lawmakers demanded a reduction in the petrol prices against the backdrop of the commencement of the Port Harcourt refinery. Now, the Senate tasked its Committee on Finance and Petroleum and Gas to investigate allegations of withheld funds by the NNPC, including 8.48 trillion naira in petrol subsidies and $2 billion, and that's about 3.6 trillion naira in unpaid taxes.
Following the criteria in the overview of the framework for revenues and expenses, the 2025 Federal Government of Nigeria budget proposed spending stands at 47.9 trillion, of which 34.82 trillion was retained. New borrowings stood at 9.22 trillion, which constitute both domestic and foreign borrowings. Debt service was valued at 15.38 trillion. Pensions, gratuities, and retirees' benefits stood at 1.443 trillion, and fiscal deficit at 13.08 trillion be approved. Capital expenditure is projected at 16.48 trillion, which is exclusive of transfers. Statutory transfer stands at 4.26 trillion. Sinking fund is projected at 430.27 billion, also be approved. The committee recommends the respective figures for total recurrent non-debts at 14.21 trillion. Special intervention for current and capital is at 200 billion and 7 billion, respectively.
Of importance, I was part of the team that went to Port Harcourt to verify the veracity of otherwise as to whether the NNPC have started production. And I can gladly report, sir, it is commendable. No matter what you can say, you have to give kudos to the president, this particular president, for making these things happen in the last 27 years. When you go there, you know from the bottom of your heart that something is amiss in this country. You could see clearly there was an internal sabotage and external influence.
In news of the Port Harcourt refinery coming on stream and the loading reported at the base gave me very sound sleep. But what I was expecting is a push down on the prices of PMS and all that. Maybe because they just started, the PMS is still hovering around 1,100 naira per liter.
Activist and politician Omoyele Sowore has clashed with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, over seized properties in Abuja. The EFCC recently announced the final forfeiture of 753 duplexes in Loko Goma district, but did not disclose the owner, referring only to a top brass and former official. Sowore criticized the EFCC for shielding the identities, accusing the agency of protecting corrupt elites. In response, the EFCC called Sowore's remarks uncharitable defending their decision not to name individuals unlinked to property documents. Sowore fired back, calling the EFCC statement reckless and revealing he had court records identifying those involved in the alleged fraud. He insists the agency must name those implicated. And now joining us to discuss this on the news, we're joined by a public affairs analyst, Francis Chilaka. Francis, thank you so much for joining us. Let's just start with your thoughts on, EFCC's refusal to disclose the identity of alleged top official, top brass behind the seized properties.
Well, if we're in a country where we now have a tough brass, so to say, and this top brass are thieves and they are corrupt individuals and are being protected by the institution that is meant to prosecute them, then it means that we have not even started the fight against corruption. It means that we are aiding and abetting corruption. So if what EFCC is doing is they take pride in exposing small thieves, Yahoo boys and all of that, but the major thieves in our economy, those who are holding Nigeria by the jugular, those who have raped Nigeria, and they're covering them, then it means that the whole reason for having an EFCC has been thrown to the dogs.
And so now let's also look at Sowore's end of this argument, right? How do public accusations like Sowore's impact, the credibility? How does his accusation, the credibility or impact the credibility of, anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria? He's calling the statement reckless and even saying he has those names.
Well, we as Nigerians, the sovereignty of this country belongs to Nigerians. And, Sowore is exercising his right, to demand. Don't forget about the information bill, which states that when you request for an information, it must be made available to you. Yes, I totally agree with Sowore. I agree with him that EFCC is acting in a very reckless manner. They're acting as if they're not accountable to anyone, which is not acceptable. If you are telling us that you have, you are taking forfeiture of, there are forfeited 753 duplexes. We're not talking about one, we're not talking about two, we're talking about 753. And for the court to have awarded it to EFCC means that somebody must have shown face in the court. Who are these persons? We need to know who these persons are. So for me, I think that Sowore is in his right to demand. Nigerians are also demanding, it's not only Sowore, Nigerians are demanding to know who are the owners of these properties. Because if we don't know the owners, who are we persecuting? How do we fight corruption when those who are aiding and abetting corruption are being shielded by security agencies? So he's in his right, just like every other Nigerian that wants to know. We want to know those who have been stealing this country dry.
Right. But Francis, at this point, we need to ask a very crucial and maybe critical or pertinent question, if you permit, which is, does the EFCC's decision to withhold names align with standard legal practices, or could it hinder justice or public trust? One has to worry. Privacy concerns?
Already, there's a trust deficit between the Nigerian people and the government. And the reason why you have this trust deficit is because institutions that are meant to give Nigerian people information, that are meant to protect Nigerian people, are not doing that, are not doing it. So people on their own will go in search of news. And that is where you have things like fake news coming up, because the government is deliberately refusing to inform the people and keep the people informed. So the EFCC is not living up to its mandate. You cannot arrest somebody, you cannot take somebody to court, you cannot win a case against someone, and you are shielding that person from the public. It's like government shielding terrorists and all those who are in the northeast and south, killing people, kidnapping people, and terrorizing people, and you're shielding them. When you shield them, you're saying that we do not have institutions that punish people for offenses that they have committed.
And just lastly, let's look at, the political dynamics of this all. How might this confrontation between Sowore and the EFCC influence the broader discussions about, anti-corruption efforts in Nigeria? Are we going to see more vocal voices? Because we know what happened the first time, or rather, earlier a couple of months ago, was it last month, where a couple of states came together and we were saying that, the EFCC's agency, it's illegal. What would happen, moving forward?
Well, when some governors, to be precise, came together and said that they wanted EFCC scrapped, it's because some people now feel that EFCC has become an organization used primarily to hunt those who are not in agreement with the government of the day. This will be very sad. This is very, very sad if this continues to pan out. At the end of the day, what it means is that the Ahmed Bola Tinubu's government is not ready and willing to fight corruption. For you to fight corruption, you must do everything possible. You must be transparent. You must be accountable. But when you're not transparent and accountable to the Nigerian people, then what kind of corruption are you fighting? It simply means that it's witch hunting. And once people begin to have that impression that there is a witch hunt, every other thing you have done would definitely not see the light of day, and people will not support you. This government needs the support of the Nigerian people. They need the trust of the Nigerian people. And the only way they can do that is to ensure that agencies that are meant to promote the activities of this government, to showcase that this government is fighting corruption, are doing it, but they're not doing it. So it's neither here nor there. EFCC needs to sit up, because what is playing out right now is not good for this government. And
it's not even good. It's not good optics for the agency as well. Francis, many thanks for doing this with us. We appreciate you for coming on. Francis Chilaka, the public affairs analyst, giving us more insight on the EFCC versus Sowore and their decision not to reveal the top brass behind the 700-plus duplexes that have been seized. We'll take a short break at this point. When we return, President Tinubu Ramaphosa seek Nigeria-SA strategic partnership. We'll give you the details after the break. Join us again. And you're welcome back. A significant diplomatic meeting that highlighted the strengthening ties between two of Africa's largest economies has been held in Cape Town. The 11th bi-nation national meeting focused on enhancing cooperation in investment, trade, and bilateral engagement. Now, this high-level gathering brought together key stakeholders from both nations, including government officials, business leaders, and dignitaries, all aiming to deepen their collaborative efforts and bolster economic growth. News Central's Bongani Ziziba gives us a story.
As Nigeria seeks to enhance its status on the world stage, South Africa's commitment to nurturing this partnership underscores the spirit of African unity. In a world where economic challenges loom large, two giants of Africa have come together to forge a path to progress. These sister countries, united by a shared vision, they are embarking on a journey of cooperation and mutual growth. President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria and President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa in an important meeting that transcends mere diplomacy. This is a gathering of leaders with a mission to strengthen the trade, economic, and cultural ties that binds their nations.
Fundamentally, South Africa and Nigeria must further expand investment between the two of us, as well as trade. We must fully explore the respective strengths and capabilities between the two countries.
We must ensure that the spirit of the collaboration and cooperation between our two leading countries in Africa will intensify and deepen under our leadership of our respective nations. This is not a matter of choice, but of destiny that include an historical responsibility that we hold the African people.
The roots of this partnership runs deep. For years, South Africa has stood with Nigeria, particularly within the Western African context. Both countries realize that their shared future depend on political and economic integration, fostering resilience against global uncertainties.
In this regard, they welcome the significant investments of South African companies in Nigeria and encourage corresponding Nigerian investments in the South African economy. The leaders recognize the need for the two countries to create an enabling business environment in both countries.
President Tinubu signaled a commitment to harnessing the potential of their combined economies.
With you and I working together, I believe we can defeat and tame the turbulence around us. I will win, I promise.
Meanwhile, this meeting comes at the height as South Africa launches the G20 presidency. President Ramaphosa also pledged to support Nigeria in its quest to join the bloc.
And Nigeria will be keenly supported by us because we've been a member of the G20 as a lone voice for the longest time.
As Africa stands at the crossroads of opportunity, South Africa and Nigeria are forging their path together, unlocking potential and fostering a future defined by collaboration. In Cape Town, for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Few weeks after presenting the 2025 budget estimate to the Delta State House of Assembly and its subsequent passage of that by the House, Governor Sheriff Oborevwori has sought a realignment of the 2024 supplementary bill of 30 billion naira before the House. Governor Oborevwori, in a letter read by the Speaker, Emomotimi Gowor, informed the House of the need to realign the 2024 approved budget, enabling the state government to address critical areas of need, stating that the proposed realignment is an amendment to the 2024 appropriation law. The proposed realignment in the approved 2024 budget aims to increase recurrent expenditure by 30 billion naira and decrease capital expenditure by 30 billion naira.
To realign the 2024 approved budget to enable government deal with critical areas of need for which additional provisions are required. Rules show that the sum of 30 billion is being proposed for realignment in the 2024 approved budget. The Honorable House may wish to note that the proposed realignment of the 2024 budget will not in any way increase the total budget size of the 2024 budget. And both additionals and subtraction in Schedule 1 and 2 equate.
A Lagos Special Offences Court has issued a bench warrant against Ahmed Kuru, the former managing director of the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria. Kuru failed to appear in a court for his arraignment over alleged 76 billion naira and $31.5 million fraud. Now, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is prosecuting Kuru alongside 5 others, including the managing director of Arik Air, and that's Captain Roy Ilogbudu, and Union Bank PLC. They are facing 6 counts of making false statements, fraudulent conversion, and abuse of office. The court's decision comes after Kuru's absence from court despite being informed of the arraignment. And on now to Lagos energy reforms in Lagos State, as the state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has signed the Lagos Electricity Bill 2024 into law, paving the way for a comprehensive overhaul of the state's energy sector. Now, the new law aims to ensure a 24-hour electricity supply to every corner of Lagos, a major step towards transforming the state into a global city with reliable and uninterrupted power supply. Governor Sanwo-Olu signed the bill at the Lagos House Ikeja on Tuesday, emphasizing its significance in addressing the state's energy challenges. Now, the Lagos Electricity Bill 2024 outlines measures to enhance power generation, distribution, and regulation, including the establishment of a new state electricity authority. Now, this move follows the federal government's approval for states to generate and distribute energy in 2023. And now to Rivers State, where the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has assured of implementing the recommendations of the report submitted to him by the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into the arson, killings, and destruction of property at some local government council headquarters on or around Monday, October 7th, 2024. Governor Fubara gave the assurance when the 7-member commission led by the chairman, Justice Ibiwegi Rosalind Minakiri, submitted 4 volumes of reports of their investigation and recommendations to him at Government House in Port Harcourt on Tuesday. The governor declared that his administration would neither tolerate nor allow such level of violence in the state anymore because it is not profitable or productive.
We're not going to be part of any system that would encourage any destruction in this state. And for that reason, we had to inaugurate this commission so that this commission should look into the cause, remote cause of this problem. And I believe that the recommendation of this commission, with the help of God and the support of everyone, we will make sure that we implement the recommendations. We are going to take it to the next stage. The report will be presented to the Executive Council, and we will surely come out with a white paper. And the white paper, I can assure you, we are going to follow it to the end. Nobody is above the law. Nobody, including myself. So provided what we're doing within the confinement of the law, we will do it with the help of everyone.
People living with disabilities stand the risk of getting worse in whatever impairments they face if attention is not given to their needs as early as possible. Now, these were the words of a medical practitioner at an event in Jos, the Plateau State capital, where some people living with different forms of disabilities were honored with assistive devices to mark the 2024 International Day for Persons with Disabilities. News Central Chizoba Anyowe tells us more in this report. Take a look.
Living with any form of disability is something no one wishes or prays for. This is because of the discomfort and all manner of stigmatizations attributed to the impaired, coupled with their pain of government's inability to attend to their needs. They were fortunate to be remembered as the world marks the 2024 International Day of Persons with Disabilities, noting the usefulness of these assistive devices in relieving their pain. These devices include collapsible white canes for the blind, hearing aids for the hearing impaired, crutches, and locally fabricated wheelchairs for the physically impaired.
The essence is to help persons with disability to adapt to climate change and also help them to participate in other activities within their communities.
Here are the opinions of stakeholders at a brief event to ensure people living with disabilities have limited barriers to battle with.
For those that they cannot hear very well, it will continue to degenerate because here develop more if the sound get to it, develops better. You understand, it leading to their brains as well. For those that they cannot see very well, or without this assistive device, it also lead them or pose a risk for them to injure themselves. In one way, they are walking without this walking, they can ram into any object around them. So with this, it actually prevents it from degenerating.
You know that climate change portends all kinds of disasters. We are calling out to people who are interested, organizations who are interested to partner with the state government to bring relief to these people.
However, it is sad to note that some of these people sell off these devices to improve their livelihood.
We will keep engaging them, we would educate them so that they will see the need to use these things to achieve the purpose or to justify the purpose for which it has been given out.
Their joy here cannot be overemphasized.
Now, even the horn of the motor is going out. I will listen to him. Anything, even if he speaks small, I will hear you. So the difference is clear to me now.
I feel happy because I can able to go to school with it. I was able to go to church with it, do everything with it. I feel happy.
This day can help me to go anywhere and help me to work and go even church.
While these individuals continue to contribute their quota in society, government is still looked up to for more of this. In Just for News Central, Chizoba Anyoi.
As Nigeria continues, as Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, hundreds of citizens, mainly from the disability community, converged on the nation's capital, Abuja, calling on duty bearers to commence the implementation of the nation's Disability Act and ensure adherence to the Act's employment quota. Now, they embarked on a road walk along several streets in the capital, I beg your pardon, calling for inclusion and a guarantee of equal opportunities. Our correspondent Idong Joseph has more details in this report.
It was a moment of optimism and hope as hundreds of Nigerians gathered to walk through major streets in Abuja. The walk is part of activities to mark the 2024 International Day of Persons with Disabilities. The event was also a rallying cry for citizens to support the cause of the nation's disability community.
Our community, the persons with disability in Nigeria, have been grossly left behind, and this is the time that will bid farewell to all manner of discrimination and exclusion.
Each step served as a reminder that individuals with disabilities should not be defined by their limitations, but rather by their excellent abilities. Participants urged duty bearers to adhere to the implementation of the nation's Disability Act and provide resources for its implementation.
Please fund the persons with disabilities. 1 billion naira. Look, the office of the SSA, I'm announcing it publicly now. For almost 1 year now, the man has been appointed. He does not have a vote in his office. And then the commission, you are running it 1 billion naira. Overheads, paying of salaries alone is about 600 million. You have only 400 million to do capital expenditures. What capital expenditures can 400 million do?
The senior special advisor to the president on special needs and equal opportunities expressed concerns about the slow implementation of the act and the lack of understanding of its provision by duty bearers. He says that the government is committed to ensuring equal treatment for persons with disabilities.
Recently, we engaged the head of ministries, departments, and agencies of government in what we call interministerial and interagency summit, whereby we create awareness. We realize that based on assessment and situation analysis that duty bearers, they don't understand there is existing law. That is the critical challenges that we're facing. So we need to invest in creating awareness by building their capacity.
With this year's team, amplifying leadership of persons with disabilities for an inclusive and sustainable future, today's work presents a powerful plea for a world where opportunities are accessible to everyone, regardless of their challenges. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
You're watching news now on News Central Television. Coming up, U.S. President Joe Biden tours Angola's port terminal Lobito. We'll have the details after the break. Join us again. And welcome back. U.S. President Joe Biden visits Angola's port of Lobito to the latest stop on a several days visit to the Central African country, where the United States is showcasing a major infrastructure project which seeks to counter China's investments on the continent. Now, Biden is expected to announce fresh investments worth $600 million for the Lobito corridor, a massive infrastructure project aimed at transporting critical minerals from inland countries to the Angolan port for export. The UN has appealed for over $47 billion to provide vital aid next year. Now, this comes in the wake of surging conflicts and the climate crisis around the world. According to the agency, escalating conflicts and the prolonged effects of climate change will leave hundreds of millions of people in need. Now, the United Nations humanitarian chief, Tom Fletcher, admits to looking to 2025 with dread as markers indicate it is the deadliest year to be a humanitarian worker.
It can't be pure solidarity.
South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol faces impeachment and resignation demands after his failed attempt to impose martial law. Now, the country woke up to turmoil Wednesday after President Yoon surprisingly imposed martial law only to have 190 lawmakers vote against it and then abruptly reversing the decision. Now, South Korea's main opposition Democratic Party condemned Yoon's initial martial law declaration as insurrectionary behavior, rising concerns about South Korea's democratic stability, given its history of authoritarian leaders until the 1980s. Opposition lawmakers have begun impeachment proceedings, while protests have stormed the streets, demanding the president's arrest. Now, South Korea's largest labor union, the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, has vowed to go on an indefinite strike until President Yoon Suk Yeol resigns. For more on this, we're joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen. Afia, you saw me struggling there with the word, so I'm going to ask you to help me. But Afia, tell us, what's the latest with South Korea?
Well, yes, President Yoon Suk Yeol and that shock move to declare martial law yesterday, just around this time yesterday, actually, which was 2 hours later, swiftly overturned by his parliament. That same parliament are now moving to impeach him. Now, he said that he brought in martial law because he was trying to protect the country from North Korea's communist forces and eliminate anti-state elements. Like I said, less than 2 hours after the declaration, it was overturned, and there was some chaos last night. I wouldn't say there was violence, but there was definitely unrest and protests on the streets, and those have continued today. Largely peaceful protests, while politicians inside the buildings are holding emergency talks. There is protests outside the National Assembly. Today, activists, or yesterday, today in fact, and tomorrow, activists are planning rallies all across the country to demand that President Yoon steps down. In Busan, South Korea's second biggest city, activists are planning to hold a rally every day for the next week. About 1,000 citizens are expected at a candlelight rally in Gwangju, and more protesters were expected in Daegu and Pohang and the southern Jeju Island as well. Protesters all across there demanding that President Yoon resigns because of that behavior, which they say is amounting to insurrection.
And so what now happens if the president now is impeached?
Well, lawmakers have tabled a motion to impeach him, and that takes quite a long time to go through Parliament, days, if not weeks. Now, 2/3 of lawmakers, that's 200 people, need to vote for it. Now, the opposition party almost have that number by themselves. The president's own party, though, have spoken against his actions, but they are still deciding how they're going to respond. Only a few of the members of his own party would need to vote in favor of the impeachment for it to go ahead. If the motion does go ahead in Parliament, then Yoon's powers and duties will be immediately suspended. The Prime Minister then will become the acting president. But the Constitutional Court of Korea has the final say. If it does approve the impeachment, then the president is removed. An election will be held within 60 days. If they don't approve the move to impeachment, then he stays in office.
One has to ask at this point, do we have any more insight into why the South Korean president made this move?
Well, President Yoon says that it was to protect South Korea from North Korean forces, from people trying to infiltrate the country. But he has been a lame duck president. He doesn't have the support of Parliament because they are largely of the opposition party. So he hasn't been able to get through the laws, the deals that necessarily he would want. He's also been mired in quite a few scandals, namely involving his wife, who has, it's been said that she has taken kickbacks and things like that. She's been accused of corruption and influence peddling as well. There's a special investigation that has been launched against her. Unless he genuinely believed that North Korea was trying to infiltrate the country, that the government was being infiltrated by forces that are anti-democratic, perhaps he did this because he wanted to show that he could wield some sort of power that he hasn't had over the course of his presidency.
And as Afia, many thanks for doing this. We hope to eyes are still on South Korea to see what the latest will be. But once again, thank you. We'll switch gears now to bring you business. Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, has been struggling with a severe food crisis for years. Millions of Nigerians are experiencing food insecurity worsened by rising food prices and decreasing purchasing power. Factors such as climate change, insecurity, and economic difficulties have intensified the situation, leaving many at risk of hunger and malnutrition. Now, despite ongoing decisions and discussions about investing in and developing the agricultural sector, there has been little progress in terms of impact, yields, and pricing. In a recent appearance on Business Edge, farmer Samson Obule, team lead at Ekiti Place Limited, Soilless Farm Limited, shared his insights on the primary drivers of food insecurity from a farmer's perspective. Take a look. Unfortunately, we're not able to bring you that. But in the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has instructed the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi San, to collaborate with the National Assembly to address genuine concerns related to the tax reform bills prior to their approval by lawmakers. Now, this information was shared in a statement by Mohammed Idris, the Minister of Information and National Orientation. The tax reform bills have sparked intense national debate, particularly from influential northern leaders who worry about their potential to deepen regional disparities. And also in a recent episode on Business Edge, Wale Ajayi, the partner and tax leader at KPMG Nigeria, discussed whether a shift to a derivation-based model for VAT distribution could worsen regional inequalities or potentially benefiting wealthier South states at the expense of poorer northern states. Take a look.
Stakeholders consultation. Now, the way it has been painted out there in the public is that it's an issue between the North and the South. That's not the case. It has nothing to do with the North or the South. What the proposed reform is doing is to just provide a realistic basis for derivation. I mean, and it does make sense. If goods are consumed in a particular state, that state should have the benefit of collecting the VAT. It doesn't mean where the tax is paid, but where it is consumed. Now, the way they've done it now is that if you look at the way they've defined derivation and then you then look at population.
You're watching news now on News Central Television. When we go on a short break, we'll go on a short break for now, but when we come back, there's going to be sports news. Stay here. Africa will celebrate its top performers for the year when the 2024 CAF Awards are staged in Marrakesh, Morocco on Monday, 16th December 2024. The CAF Awards shine a spotlight on the continent's most outstanding football talents, celebrating their exceptional achievements in both club and national competitions. Now, the highlight will be the crowning of the CAF African Player of the Year in both the men's and women's categories, two of the most coveted individual honors in African football. Now, the event will also feature a range of other categories, including Best Coach, Best National Team, and Best Club, recognizing excellence across the full spectrum of African football. Now, this year's awards ceremony promises to be a spectacular affair with a star-studded lineup of nominees and guests from across the continent and beyond. The Football Association will not take formal action against Crystal Palace or club captain Mark Gishe after the defender again displayed a religious message on his kit. Now, he wrote, "I love Jesus" on his Rainbow Captain's armband during Saturday's match against Newcastle, and later displayed "Jesus loves you" during Tuesday's win at Ipswich. Now, the Rainbow armbands are part of the Premier League's LGBTQ plus inclusion initiative with Stonewall. Now, while FA rules prohibits religious messaging on clothing or equipment, team captains are encouraged but not required to wear the Rainbow armband. Now, the FA has reminded Palace of these regulations but will not take formal action against the club or the player. And just a reminder that we love you too. Well, before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Human rights activist Dele Farotimi arraigned over alleged defamation. Senate poses tax bill, plans meeting to address disputes. U.S. President Joe Biden in Angola tours Lobito port terminal. Now remember that you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.